This episode of the Men of Iron podcast has been sponsored by Garmin Builders. Garmin Builders sets the standard in home construction. With more than 50 years of expertise, Garmin Builders has been building homes, communities, and connections that positively impact the lives of others. By blending tradition with innovative building science, Garmin delivers a better built, more efficient home. Discover the edge at GarminBuilders.com. Thanks again to Garmin Builders for sponsoring this episode of the Men of Iron podcast.
You know, like many men I fell into, pornography, and that was probably the sin that, I would say it's like the slow killer.
Welcome back to the Men of Iron podcast. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Josiah Bender. Welcome, Josiah. Thanks for being here on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate having you. Why don't you just let us tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of dig into your story and how mentorship has made a difference in your life. But we just want to hear about you and what God's been doing in your life.
Yeah, so I grew up here in Lancaster County, so I've been here my whole life, and really grew up in a great Christian family. Parents have always loved the Lord, and have been a part of Victory Church. We have different locations here throughout Lancaster County, really since before I can remember. I remember walking into our now Greenfield location at the age of 5 or 6 when we were really finally for the first time moving into a permanent location. And I just remember sort of, walking through there and touring it with our Pastor Kurt. And yeah, just for the most part, grew up following the Lord, but did have a season of my life where I fell away from that. And started to pursue kind of worldly lusts, such as trying to get famous and make a lot of money and do all those kinds of things. Really focused a lot on social media and wanting to build like an empire on there. And I did find a lot of success, but the success really pulled me away from the Lord. I started to get involved with the wrong crowds of people. And it wasn't until I, was in a relationship that was really not honoring the Lord. It was really not a good relationship at all. But once that ended, I realized, how much I really wanted things that the Bible says is good, like a family, like a family that loves each other and loves the Lord, and really started to get convicted through that season. And that was where the Lord called me out of social media and that whole world, and said, hey, I want you to go all in this ministry world and use what you've learned on social media, to glorify me. So that's sort of a very quick, kind of recap of where I've been and kind of where I am now.
Let's dig into how you got your start. You're saying you grew up around faith. What do you remember about, being introduced to Jesus, or, getting your start being around faith? Like, what do you remember about those times? What do you appreciate about that?
Yeah. So I know I gave my life to the Lord when I was six years old. Kind of in my living room. You kind of hear that kind of story all the time. But yeah, like it was just kind of second nature for me. My parents were super involved in the church. My dad was the worship leader. We went every Sunday. I remember running around the church, even before that, just getting in trouble in the mornings during worship rehearsal, but in an innocent way. But yeah, that living room experience was the first time I really remember saying, hey, like, I want to accept Jesus into my heart and give my life to the Lord. And then I got involved with Sight and Sound. Started acting there when I was 7 and acted there till I was about 12. So about 5 years there, and that was great. Loved that, but it was a lot. And I think, as I've shared on some other podcasts, sort of not intentionally, but put like a pressure on me, just being in the spotlight from that young age, that I had to be perfect, and started to get really easy to start hiding my imperfections because I wanted to please everybody and to be perfect. And then it, kind of went downhill from there.
So do you think that's like that's the place where you started to get off track, like some of that performance minded stuff? Or
there wasn't any crazy sin in those years, but certainly just smaller things it was a performative mindset. And I don't blame Sight and Sound at all.
Of course.
Great theater, and it's more of my own problem with the way that I processed those things and internalized, wanting to be the center of attention, and those kinds of things just kind of led me astray. So yeah, I think it was following that where I wasn't in the spotlight anymore, and I kind of wanted to be, and that's where I started sacrificing my different morals to get there.
Okay, so you started Sight and Sound when you're like 7. You were there until you're like 12, you said?
Yeah.
Which was wild in and of itself. I mean, that's like very young to be involved in.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Sight and Sound is theater here in Lancaster County, like pretty big audiences. It's a pretty big deal to be that young and being an actor on the stage, I would think.
Yeah.
Um, you're part of that until you're like 12. What's going on as you're becoming a teenager? Where are you at in your faith walk, your relationships?
I still really did love the Lord. Like I've always had just a tender heart when it comes to, hearing from God and wanting to please Him. But I think, like many men I fell into, pornography, and that was probably the sin that, I would say it's like the slow killer. It didn't immediately have consequences in my life, but because I had so much shame from, viewing pornography, I never really saw myself as like a follower of Christ. I always, felt like I wasn't worthy of that. And so then when other, sins sort of started to enter into my life, it was easier to say yes to those things because I was already failing in that area.
Do you remember how old you were when pornography started becoming part of your life?
Yeah, I would say probably around the age of 11 or 12,
Okay.
Which is just crazy to think about. But yeah, it was at like a sleepover, and one of my friends just showed me an image, and it just went downhill from there. Curiosity kind of got the best of me. So
I know that like the latest stats is like the average age of exposure in the United States to pornography for young boys is 8.
Yeah, I heard that.
Which is wild. But it's essentially like, and I mean, if you're a man and you're listening to this podcast, you probably know it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's a big part of a lot of men's lives, which is not a good thing. Like that's not, we don't want to make excuses. But you obviously remember the first time you're exposed to it. How does that become, it sounds like it's definitely part of your story. How does that become a bigger and bigger part of your story? Like, are you hiding that? Or, what's that like for you?
Yeah, definitely hiding it. And, there was a time in my probably 13 or 14 years old where I think I got caught. And that stopped for a little bit. There were times at conferences where the Lord like really convicted me, and, 3-4 weeks clean, but then
you're like overwhelmed and you want to respond.
Right. Sort of that spiritual high, but it always kind of kept coming back into my life. And I don't think in any of those moments I really found freedom from it. So it was always something that I struggled with growing up. And like I said, it really just hindered my ability to have confidence that I don't have to sin. Like I really felt like a slave to it.
Yeah.
And it just hindered my calling, hindered, what I thought the Lord wanted for me. And then ultimately, I shifted from a consumer of it to almost, helping to produce it in some ways. So that gets into starting with social media, innocent, and, started out with like a video game highlight page, posted clips, really nothing wrong with that. But as I got into it more, I started a meme page and experienced a lot of success growing an audience. At its height, I had over 1 million followers on it.
Wow.
Which again is like, to a lot of people, it's impressive. And I wish that, it could be something I'm proud of. But there was a lot of sacrifices in it. And then, when you have that many followers, different businesses started to approach me with like, hey, like if you promote this, we'll give you this amount of money. And the businesses paying the most was, OnlyFans managers. So
no kidding.
Yeah. So they would pay me like an absurd amount of money to post just like a girl in a bikini, advertising her page. And, I didn't really realize what I was doing, but I was influencing my audience of teenagers who enjoy my memes to go and now, follow these girls. And, it's not just their Instagram they're following.
Yeah.
So I think I wasn't fully aware of what I was doing. Again, I was, 17, 18, 19 when I was doing this.
Yeah.
But that was a destructive, a part of my life as just more and more shame from that just kind of built up in my life.
Okay, so let's dig into this. So you have a Christian upbringing. Your dad's involved in the church. You're growing up in the church. I mean, you're literally surrounded by church all the time. You get exposed to pornography. It starts to make like a slow change in your life. Is that fair? That's what you're saying?
100%. Yep.
You start to get a social media presence. Sounds like you're pretty successful pretty quickly. How old are you when you're starting to get sponsorships and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, even with it was like a Fortnite themed page when I was 14. People paying me $50, $60 a post. So even from a young age, I was making significant money. I think when I was 16 is when I like literally had to hire an accountant to like help me with my
No
taxes.
kidding.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, it was, and I think that, not like it was intentional, but my dad would always, kind of praise me for being like this business-minded
successful.
man,
Yeah.
successful. And
Yeah.
it sort of covered the things that were happening in the dark with like, well, I'm successful. Like, this is good. These are good things. When it was not good for me at all.
Okay. So could you talk about that? Cause I think it's a common experience for a lot of men, is that you have this outward facing, successful looking image, but it sounds like what you're saying is you simultaneously knew 100% this is not who I am. Like, I have a real problem.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do believe that the Lord has gifted me with the ability to grow things and market things. I think that is being used for good now.
That's a
in
good
the
thing.
season I'm at now. But yeah, I definitely know I was abusing it for my own gain, wanting to make money, grow followers, really inflate my own ego and pride. And the more people would compliment me for these things, and just the worse it got. I had an inflated image of who I was, and it drowned out, though, like you said, I didn't know, but I would say kind of the opposite of like the success drowned out the bad things.
You're like, well, I'm just being so successful, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, like this is just kind of part of being successful.
Were you able to just run being successful, knowing that you'd made some compromises, and you're just like, well, whatever, I'll just keep being successful, I'll fix it later? Or did it actually affect your day-to-day life? Like, this is not right. This is going to catch up with me eventually.
Yeah, I think early on it did. But I think because I went to church growing up, I think I had an incorrect understanding of like grace in a way.
Yeah.
And I almost felt like, eventually like I'll stop. And
God will forgive me anyway.
I did, but I thought that, it was fine for the time. And yeah, I think the idol of like worldly success, I was, that was an idol in my life. So God wasn't number one anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think, you'll chase what's number one in your life. And that was my top priority.
So what did you actually want when you're doing that?
Yeah, I wanted fame, notoriety, attention, money. I wanted the Los Angeles lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, that was what I was chasing.
Yeah.
Just, early on watching YouTubers who had it.
Yeah.
It was like, this is what I want to achieve for myself. I wanted the girls, like I wanted that feeling. And so that was kind of what I was chasing.
So along the way, were there people that you knew in your circle that were like, hey, this is something weird is going on here?
I would say no. I mean, most people in that circle aren't believers.
Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine who was even doing better than I was, like in person, like, a friend at school doing Snapchat stuff.
Yeah.
And, Pastor Kurt has said it for years. He's the pastor at Victory Church, but that show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
And that was the truth. Like, just being around this, this grind, this hustle of success, and it just like it, really took over my life, and that was my number one focus.
Yeah.
And it got worse. We haven't talked about this yet, but it got worse when I was prescribed Adderall for ADHD, just struggling in school, and the Adderall like heightened this focus. Like, I had an unnatural amount of focus towards this one thing, where my ADHD was already like, I was hyper focused on this, and now it's like, I was barely sleeping, getting 3-4 hours of sleep a night, just grinding to get this idea of success.
Growing the business side of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so you eventually get contacted by these OnlyFans managers, and you're starting to make good cash on that. So where does that go from there?
Yeah, so it went from, these guys would pay me $6,000 a month to do 20 or 30 posts, and having 2 or 3 guys paying me that.
Yeah.
And it went from me like, okay, like I'm making money from them. And I actually was like, okay, why can't I just manage these girls? Like, I'm already posting them. I'm already doing the marketing. Like, why don't I start managing these girls? So 17 was when I got like my first model, and I was, technically kind of like an online pimp at the time. And I would take 50% of their revenue, and in exchange, I would market them.
Yeah.
I would buy promotions for them, and obviously pay with that. But that is really where I started to realize how destructive the pornography world is.
Yeah.
As I'm dealing with these girls, like trying to get content for them from their page, and she's like, on like a 4-day bender on coke and like doing all these drugs. It was like, I realized, oh my goodness, like these girls aren't happy, even though they're making all these money. Like they're doing it because they have so many problems in their life that they're dealing with. And I started to feel for them. Like I started to really want to help them. And I was like, I'm not helping these girls by doing this.
Yeah.
That was kind of what I used as an excuse, is like, well, I'm making them money. But I realized like, no, like I'm making things so much worse in their lives. And that was that in exchange with, then I got into a relationship. This was the relationship I was talking about. And she actually had her own OnlyFans page. So I was like, okay, this is great. Like I'm gonna date her and manage her OnlyFans. And real quickly I was like, wait, I don't want my girlfriend having an OnlyFans page. But I realized, even just getting more of that contact with her, like these girls are so broken. And that's where like a different conviction of viewing pornography and, in some ways helping to produce it really hit my heart of like, we are watching these girls like really hurt themselves. Yeah. Like I'm choosing to be pleasured by these women really hurting themselves. Yeah. And that's where I was like, I just saw the dark side of the porn industry that isn't really shown to a lot of guys.
Well, I think that's obviously listening to you in real time. Like, obviously we're not here to highlight like, hey, you can make some money. This is no, like this is a horrible, deeply painful thing that hurts a lot of people. And I think what's weird, and I guess what's challenging for men today is that porn is a part of a lot of men's stories. And a lot of men are stuck in this place where they know it's wrong. They know it's hurtful. They know it's harmful. And yet they haven't stopped. And so I'm assuming, I guess we haven't got there yet, but there's some part of your story where it's like, this has to change. Can you like walk through what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it really took me seeing sort of the downfall or the byproduct of what this worldly success that I was chasing would bring.
Yeah.
I realized like, what am I going to have to sacrifice to achieve this? And you just realize like in this relationship, like, you can't hold a relationship that's going to last, when it's all based around worldly things and money and pleasure. Like that's not going to last. And I think ultimately I started to see the truths of things I remembered learning in the church, like, oh, like, okay, this is true. Like, a marriage that is built on God's word, like lasts because there's commitments there and there's somebody that they're both trying to honor and please, and that's God. So I started to see the truths of what I grew up learning in church. And I don't think I know that God didn't mean like when he says in Romans 12, test and approve God's good, pleasing, perfect will for your life. I know he didn't mean like literally like go out and like, sin and see if it's right. But in a way, that's what I did. Yeah. And I tested it, and by God's grace, he allowed me to see, how destructive it could be without like completely, destroying me and giving me away to that. And there was a moment where it was just real clear. Like I felt the Lord ask me like, what are you going to serve? Like who are you going to serve? Yeah. And that was the moment. It wasn't immediately, but I started to realize like if I keep serving this, like it will lead to destruction. Yeah. In Proverbs it says there's a path before each man that leads to death. And I realized real quickly that was the path that would lead to death in my life. And thankfully, by God's grace, I was able to turn from it. And that for me, I mean, honestly, like it was like the full commitment to, okay, like I'm ready to do what God has for me. That's what shifted. I mean, I think that's what made, quitting pornography and quitting vaping and stopping abusing my Adderall, like all these things I quit. It was so much easier because I was like, okay, I'm 100% committed to what the Lord has for me. Whereas growing up, it was like, yeah, I'm in, but I'm kind of in. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's to credit of what sort of got me out of those things was I'm all in. Like I'm not one foot in the world, one foot, kind of in the church, like I'm all in.
So was that like a one-day decision? You were just like, okay, I need to be completely out of this and I need to be completely into this? Or was it a decision that kind of took shape over time?
Yeah. So actually it was in this relationship with this girl where I felt this calling back to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And it almost like kind of, by nature, I was like, okay, but I'm going to try to keep this relationship. Like I want her to keep living with me, but we're going to start going to church. Yeah. Like, so it was still like this, like, okay, like I'm gonna try to do this church thing, but I still want this pleasure from this relationship. Like I still want these things. And it was then where his name was Blade Everly. He was the youth pastor at the time at Victory, where I asked him, I was like, hey, like, can we serve in youth ministry? And he was like, no. he's like, you can't. Like, you're living with your girlfriend. Like, if you want to serve, you can't be doing that. And I like texted him and had this whole argument, and I was really mean in my text. Like, how could the church do this to me? Like they're stopping my, desire to serve God. And he was just super patient with me. And he's like, hey, like, let's get breakfast to talk about this more. And, my girlfriend at the time, she came and yeah, just, he was super patient with me. And I started to kind of ask more questions to understand, even though my initial response was like to be mean and prideful. Eventually over, those few weeks, I started to see that you can't do it. Like you can't have one foot in the world, one foot in the church. Whereas I really came out of having all in the world. I tried to split the two. And I remember there was a time where I was like, okay, I won't use her name, but I was like, okay, like let's try to stop like physically sleeping together at night. Like we'll still live together, but like, why don't you go home to your parents for the night? And it just wasn't working. Like she was not into this church thing. I was trying to strong arm it. And I remember I was laying there in my bed and I just said, like, Lord, I want to serve you. I know I do. I'm ready to go all in, but I don't know how to end this relationship. There was some like, she was like hurting herself in this relationship. So I felt like I was kind of her savior, and I felt like if I broke up with her, like it would be at risk to her. And I just felt stuck. So I was like, Lord, like I'm ready to go all in. I don't know how to end this relationship. If you'll just end it, like I'm going to serve you for the rest of my life. And I remember that next day we got into like a very tiny like argument about like laundry or something that just like exploded. And she just went on a crazy like I don't know what happened with her, but she's like, I'm getting all my stuff, I'm moving out. And she literally that day got all her stuff, moved out, and I haven't talked to her since. And it was just like the hand of God, like even in that situation, like not that I should have given him an ultimatum like that, but he knew like my heart was sincere and like I really feel for her. I don't know how to end this, like help me. And he just like, okay, we'll take it out. And that was like, okay, like you're here, like I'm ready. And yeah, it wasn't like perfect from then on. Like I was still like, I still had, the depression from that relationship ending that I had to deal with. Like it definitely wasn't perfect. I was now living alone. Like I still had this page I didn't really know what to do with, but the Lord was really gracious with me even through that season. And it just, for me, revealed kind of the long suffering of God, just, watching us as we slowly, as the Holy Spirit slowly kind of sanctifies us. And, that's the lifetime renewal of our spirit and our bodies.
Okay. So you're just saying like you still had the page, you still had the stuff. So at what point are you like, okay, I gotta totally get out of this?
It was like another prayer, like, Lord, like help me get rid of this page. And that same day somebody hit me up. He's like, hey, would you ever sell the page? And I was like, sure. So that was a cool experience of like, so I had to fly to California, meet this guy with a contract. Like, it was a pretty expensive sale of the page. And he signed it, and I just got rid of everything. And, that sum of money helped me for probably 6 or 7 months. Still didn't really have good spending habits because I was making so much, like my spending was off. So I blew through it pretty quick. But over those 6 months, I was able to give a lot of time to the church and come in on office days with Blade. And he was just his patience with me over that time period. Even like right when you give your life to the Lord, like you have some pretty crazy takes about like, the church, and he just talked through just like some of those things with me and helped kind of like kindle the fire in the right way that was in me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that was huge for me to have somebody that really cared about investing time into me, talking with me through some of those things, because you can give your life to the Lord, but you still have all these different, patterns of thought that you need to work through with somebody. And he was super gracious and giving his time and talking to me.
All right, so let's dig into Blade specifically. So one of the things we talk about at Men of Iron is like we want everybody to have a mentor. And Blade was not your Men of Iron mentor necessarily, but it sounds like he was another man that was definitely willing to invest in you when you needed it. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So did you know Blade for a long time beforehand, or did you just bump into him trying to serve in student men? What did that look like?
Blade came probably when I was in 10th grade.
Okay.
And he just initially, right off the bat, just really called out a lot of potential in me. And even things that I didn't really like think could ever happen. Like just, hey, Josiah, you're a leader. Like you're a leader. And just those kinds of things, in the moment, I didn't like really believe. But when I was ready to go all in, I was like, hey, I want to learn from somebody who really saw potential in me, even when I was at my lowest. And he did that. And my parents still, like, up until maybe my last few months of my senior year, they forced me to go to youth group. So I was regularly engaging with him, and his strategy of ministry really clicked with me. Like he made space to have fun. He made space to joke. I trusted him through really everything, and he was just patient. So I knew, like, this is somebody I wanna be mentored by. I don't think it was an official, like, hey, will you be my mentor?
Yeah.
But I definitely was like, hey, like, I want to intern with you. I want to learn from you. Like, I want to talk through some things with you.
So what did that look like for you? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I would say honestly, it was just listening. Like,
Yeah.
Blade is a great listener, and he would listen to me just kind of ramble on and on for hours in his office, just about different opinions I had about the church or what my future could look like. So I think a lot of times, we just need people to listen.
Yeah.
And he did a great job of doing that, and very kindly, like, offering some rebuke when I needed it.
That's one of the things I hear when you're talking about Blade is it sounds like he was there consistently. It sounds like he was willing to hear you out, but it also sounds like he held the line.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey man, that's not right.
Yeah.
And like, we're still cool, but that's not right. Is that fair?
That was definitely the case. I think in that season of my life, when I really, really was wanting to like listen to him and learn from him, I think I already knew some of the things that I was doing weren't right. So I think, I don't think I needed at that time for him to like necessarily always challenge me, because I was like just so on fire, like challenging myself, like, trying to fast like for all these days in a row. And like, I had that fire. So I think he was really crucial in kind of helping me kindle it in the right direction, and actually helping me put it to use, for others as opposed to just myself. And yeah, he was really just an ear to listen to some of the things that I was saying. And he did kind of offer some correction, but in a way that was helpful for me, because I think as we're talking about like mentors, and even thinking of some of the mentors in my own life, like you have to know how you offer correction to somebody is different depending on who it is. Some people need that, like, hey, like, you got to stop, and some people need some more like suggestive kind of criticism.
What's your relationship with Blade like today?
He actually got me into running 2 years ago. So we would spend a lot of mornings at 4 a.m. running 15 miles together, and just talking and kind of suffering through that together. And that really built our friendship. And we ran a number of like marathons together. So now that was helpful just as he transitioned out of that role. And he did move back here. So he's back. He's been here for 2 years. So since I've been back, that's kind of when we started to really run together. But he's always been somebody that I've looked up to, just his work ethic, his discipline, and even little things like there's an app, Strava, for runners, and just looking at his runs at doing 20 miles in the morning, working at 12 hours, just like that, like discipline of like putting off the flesh and just really working towards things that will build good work ethic and discipline. That was really inspiring to me. So even when he wasn't there anymore, like, I still looked up to him and looked at what he was doing and felt inspired by it.
So what would you say to men? I'm sure there's men listening that are in similar situations. Maybe they're not, I'm certain there's men listening that have a pornography issue that they're trying to hide and they're trying to keep in the dark. Like, what's your encouragement to them as somebody who's walked through that, who's doing better in that area?
Finding somebody that can keep you accountable is good. What I've found is sometimes, accountability partners can sort of be like a way to cope with it. Because you just kind of confess to them and then you feel good about it. But you're not like really ready to stop. So I think pornography is such a strong addiction. Like, there's chemical pathways. Like, it definitely is going to take like a serious overhaul of your life. At least that's what it took for me. Was, pornography was kind of a symptom of me just not really being all in what God was asking me to do. And I think, really the only way to conquer pornography is to say, like, I'm completely all in with you, Christ, like help me. And I think that is sort of the shift that has to be made before you get an accountability, before you do those things, which are good. Like you have to be 100% all in what God is asking you to do.
It's actually like a spiritual decision.
Right.
Like I
Yeah.
want to walk in the calling that God's placed on my life, and I know that this has nothing to do with it.
Right.
And then you need help. So like, I mean, you have Blade helping you. I'm sure you had other guys helping you probably too. But it's not something you have to do by yourself. I appreciate what you're saying about it. It can be a coping thing
Yeah.
because I've seen that where it's like, okay, you confess, you feel better, you do better for a week, then you're right back into it. But at the same time, you're like, well, I can just confess it again,
Yep.
and then you're trapped in this cycle.
Yeah, I don't think there's one prescription for
Yeah.
like, beating pornography. Like there's courses online, like aside from the fact that it has to start with like a full commitment to Christ. Hey, I'm all in with Jesus. Like I know the power I have to say no from this, because that to me was what set me free. Was like for years I felt like a slave to it. Like I didn't have power over it. But when I really gave my life to the Lord, I was like, no, I have power over my flesh. Like the running really helped me realize like I can say no, or I can say yes to running even when my flesh doesn't want to, and working out. Like, so I think like turning all of the parts of our soul, our body, our flesh, our mind, our spirit, like all of those things have to be in alignment with God. And when we're really lacking in any of those areas, like it's going to be tough to not lack in that area of lust and pornography. So,
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, man.
yeah,
It's cool
yeah.
to hear about how Blade made a difference in your life and just how the Lord's working in your life.
Yep.
As we kind of wind down this conversation, what would your like guys that are listening that are resonating with what you're saying? Maybe they've had similar experiences. What's your encouragement to those guys?
Make the Lord like the number one priority in your life. And I know it sounds kind of cliche, like you've probably heard it before, but really think about like what is my number one priority. Because I know for me, I really did love the Lord. Like I never really said like I hate you, God, or like I don't want what you want for me, but I did with my actions. And I put worldly success on a pedestal. So maybe just really ask yourself honestly, like is my career, is that number one in my life? But if anything else is number one, lust or pornography or whatever the addiction is, that is going to be a symptom of that. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is like something else is controlling your life. Something else is number one.
So it's like the system of tiny compromises that you make that get you into a lot of trouble.
Absolutely.
And like one of the best things you can do is keep Christ as a core conviction in your life and continue to serve him and make no compromises.
Yeah, no compromises.
Which puts you in a weird spot sometimes, but it's the best way to keep Christ at the center of your life. We actually didn't talk much about where your life's at today, which we should probably do.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. Gave my life to the Lord and intern with Blade, and he took me to a conference in Alabama. It was about Grow. It was called Grow Leader, and it was with Church of the Highlands in Alabama. And that was like the eye-opening experience for me. I was waiting for the Lord to show me like what does full-time ministry look like.
Yeah.
And I heard about ministry I heard about strategic ministry, and I realized like I can absolutely use this mind that I have for strategic growth and helping people take next steps. Like I can use my mind now for the kingdom. And that was an eye-opening experience. And they're doing a great job down in Alabama with they have 23 locations, but just huge success. The Lord is moving there. And I was like, okay, like, I really do feel a burden for Victory Church and serving here, but I want to go learn from, the people who are doing it the best. And I knew like maybe relocating would be good just for myself to grow some independence from my family and just ultimately really work on my relationship with the Lord. And went there for 2 years, loved every second of it, met my wife. Her name's Kaylee. She's awesome. We got married. We graduated, got married, and left for our honeymoon in the same weekend, and moved.
That's Christian college. That's how that works.
Pretty much. But came back here. She graciously said, "Okay, she's from Mississippi, so she moved 19 hours from her family, and we're in Lancaster County now. I have the blessing of getting to serve with a great staff team at Victory Church." And now for the past 6 months, I've been in the student pastor role, which for me is just such a redemptive cycle of, in my teenage years, I really steered teenagers off in the wrong direction, but now the Lord has redeemed it, and now I can help to point them in the right ones.
It's so interesting how God gives us unique gifts and talents, and they tend to stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you're identifying like you have this knack for leadership, for influence, and when you ignore God, you oftentimes use your gifts and talents in hurtful ways.
Yeah.
But when God redeems those things, he used them for his glory and his purposes. So it's cool to see that arc in your story.
Every time I look back at it, just give God glory for it.
Yeah,
and,
man.
And yeah, I'm just so grateful for where I'm at now. And I've never had so much peace in my life.
Yeah.
Just knowing really what I was made for is, I feel like I don't struggle with, ADHD or depression or anxiety anymore. Those things really went away when I really embraced my purpose in the right way.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on the pod, Josiah.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening to the Men of Iron podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. At Men of Iron, we exist to change a culture one man at a time, and we'd love to have you partner with us. So go to menofiron.org to see how you can get involved, or donate at menofiron.org/donate.